What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Fringe. Following yesterday's very disappointing lead up to the verdict for Tamara Leach and Chris Barber, I felt it's time to talk about what this means, what happens next. If we compare to what happened to the Coots 4, technically the Coots 3, one of them took a plea deal. We talk about Art Pulowski. Not all is lost. We still have to wait for sentencing for the guilty verdict on mischief. Yesterday, we went breaking over the conviction of mischief. Today, I want to go over with you guys what is happening in that trial, what to expect next, and what we might see in Canada. Now, one of the things I want to touch on here is that we do, in fact, have a two-tiered justice system, but don't take it from me. Let's take a look over here. Canada, showing out years on trial, convicted of mischief. And then down here, of course, Hamas holes burning Canadian flags, and they get nothing. This is the big problem I have with the two-tier justice system. Again, okay to block the streets, not okay to block the streets. This is the problem we have in Canada, and a lot of people took precedency with our politicians yesterday, especially those who are running to take the chair of Prime Minister, who, while they supported the Freedom Convoy during the early stages, have nothing to say. And I understand people's logic behind it. I understand people saying they can't, it's going to affect numbers, it's all these other things. My question is who would you rather have in charge in public office? Do you want somebody who's going to say it like it is, or do you want somebody who's going to lie to their constituents in order to get their votes? Because if they're prepared to lie, and if they're prepared to hide things so that their numbers stay the same, how do you think they're going to behave when they're in office? That doesn't mean I'm dropping my support for the Conservatives. It's just to say I'm a little disappointed. Especially when the truckers have been included in speeches. I'm hopeful at some point, again at the time of filming this video, something is said, at least after the election. It's not just about the Freedom Convoy. We have a two-tier justice system in our country. When is somebody going to put a stop to these protests that are okay to block our roads? Stop people from going anywhere? Chants that our country should be burned to the ground. Yet, loving Canadians, including Tamara Leach, who, by the way, did not drive a vehicle to the Freedom Convoy. She did not technically participate in the Freedom Convoy. She organized. She handled finances. She spoke at press conferences. She was a speaker. This is our free and fair Canada that we live in. I have a big problem with this. I want to take a look at the articles that came out yesterday to talk about what exactly happens next and the state of the charges. Freedom Convoy organizers Tamara Leach, Chris Barber have been found guilty of mischief for their roles in the 2022 mass protest in Ottawa. Now, keep in mind, I understand, I know I'm showing this on CTV News. I want to cover it from their perspective because this is going to be telling as to how a liberal judge may act when it comes to sentencing. Leach and Barber were key figures and organizers in the protest that saw hundreds of vehicles and thousands of people occupy downtown Ottawa and insist that they would stay until public health mandates were eliminated. Again, this is false information. The Freedom Convoy went to Ottawa to demand somebody speak to them and hear their pleas in regards to the mandates. They never once said, we won't leave until these are dropped. They went there and said, we won't leave until we are heard. No government officials came out to talk to them. None sat down with them at the table to discuss their departure. Justin Trudeau simply forced the police on them, froze bank accounts, invoked the Emergency Act on his own citizens. In finding the two guilty of mischief, Ontario Court Justice Heather Perkins McVeigh said the evidence shows that the two routinely encouraged people to join or remain in the protest. And this is again linked back to Tamara saying, hold the line. Despite knowing the adverse effect in having on downtown residents and businesses. It says here, the defense argued that Leach and Barber called for a peaceful protest, which they did, and blamed any disorder on police and city officials. Again, I think that's a fair statement. While reading her decisions, Perkins McVeigh repeatedly quoted Barber's TikTok videos. Now, this is where I said yesterday the big problem comes with the charges. This is why it's important to watch what you say when you're on these videos. And this is another reason why it was important that while lawyers like Eva Chipiuk, Keith Wilson joined the Freedom Convoy later on in its growing stages, would have been beneficial if, I feel, had they have been counseled prior as to what could happen to them legally and why they had to watch certain words, tone, etc. Now, there were defenses to these videos, and we'll get to that in this article. But it says here, for Barber's TikTok videos, which he used to communicate with the protesters, I don't believe in that. As evidence, the duo encouraged people to take part in the protest despite known harms to residents and businesses. In one of these videos, Barber talked about an empty intersection being lonely and said that somebody should fix it. He also said that if protesters' trucks were removed by authorities, they would be replaced. Again, it says here, my goodness, I had to watch all these TikTok videos because words themselves don't really do them justice, Perkins McVeigh told the court. Quote, you need to see the sarcastic tone or hear it. You need to watch those TikToks. And I did. Perkins McVeigh went on to talk about how Barber enjoyed a sort of celebrity status in videos depicting his walks around the convoy, and Leach was seen as the leader. She was seen as the spokesperson. She was the one who detailed information at press conferences. That's it. She was never dubbed leader of the Freedom Convoy. The people dubbed her leader of the Freedom Convoy. She said that when either Leach or Barber said something, it carried meaning with the protests. Perkins McVeigh found Leach and Barber not guilty of intimidation and counseling someone to commit intimidation. So that's a plus. That's a bonus. We'll take it. At least that was dropped. The Carter application to convict Tamara Leach with association to Chris Barber's TikToks was dropped as well. Perkins McVeigh said intimidation carries a sense of menace or violence, which again, no one at the Freedom Convoy did. She said the evidence does not support that charge because Leach and Barber repeatedly called for protesters to remain peaceful. Again, words mattered. Thank God they kept that in their messaging. Barber and his lawyer, Diane Magus, left the courthouse without comment Thursday afternoon, as they should. I believe, and again, I haven't seen either of them on social media aside from a tweet this morning from Tamara Leach of a Canadian flag. The best thing they can do right now until sentencing is just stay off social media, stay away from interviews, don't open your mouths, don't say anything. I think the lawyer made the right call. Lawrence Greenspan, Leach's lawyer, said it was a better afternoon than morning, referring to the lone guilty verdict for his client coming before a lunch break. Was it Meatloaf who said 2 out of 3, while 5 out of 6 ain't bad, Greenspan quipped. He added that he can't comment on the mischief verdict or other matters that are still before the court. Again, best reason why these guys could stay off the internet just until this happens, until the conviction comes forward. Leach and Barber were also found not guilty of obstructing police and counseling someone to obstruct police, which again, big benefit there. Both were arrested without incident ahead of a mass police enforcement operation, which began on February 18th, 2022 to end the protest entirely. So what you have to take from that, and again, when the charges come forward, a single mischief charge, when we talk about mischief, this is the same thing that's caused when somebody spray paints a wall or vandalizes property. This is not a major crime. Given Tamara's time in prison already, even Chris Barber, we're going to get to Barber's charges. Hopefully, it means minor probation / house arrest and maybe some community service. It says here, Barber was found guilty of counseling others to disobey a court order for telling people to ignore an injunction issued by a judge directing convoy participants to stop honking their truck horns in downtown Ottawa. Leach was not charged with that offense. Again, the Carter application was dropped. Another charge of counseling others to commit mischief was stayed at the request of the Crown because it was no longer necessary due to the mischief conviction. Justice Perkins McVeigh had enough evidence to render a guilty verdict, it says. Perkins McVeigh read an abbreviated version of a 100-page verdict. Again, 105-page verdict, sorry, that we talked about yesterday. We got the cliff notes from Ezra Levant. It says here, Leach and Barber were greeted by supporters as they arrived to the court Thursday morning. One woman ran up to give Barber a hug, while others shouted expressions of support. Leach broke into a smile as her supporters yelled, "We love you, Tamara," as she entered the courthouse, accompanied by Greenspan. The court will reconvene on April 16th to set a sentencing date. Again, I would encourage any YouTubers, any content creators that are in the know with Tamara Leach, with Chris Barber, do not ask them to come on your shows. Do not ask for interviews. Although I'm sure they're smart enough to decline, we should not be encouraging those interviews at this time. Stay far away from this. Let them get through their sentencing, please, before doing anything. Now, all is not lost, at least on Tamara's end. Again, when it comes to a mischief charge, I have yet to see what it is the court is going to actually do in terms of sentencing. When you go back to the Coots 3, a lot of that was tied to shovels. You know the reference to shovels, or pew-pews, that were found on site. Again, none of that was relevant here, so we'll see what happens with Tamara when it comes to April 16th, or when they set a date for sentencing, what it requires. Again, her lawyers seem very optimistic that, hey, this is going to be okay. Things are going to be all right. Again, keep in mind, she's already served time. And for something as low as a mischief charge, I don't believe jail time, or at least would hope jail time, is not on the table for Tamara moving forward. So hope is not lost. Ezra Levant, if you watched our coverage yesterday, when I broke down minute for minute as Ezra went through the court proceedings, one thing that's fantastic is Ezra Levant from day one with the Democracy Fund has been alongside Tamara and others to support and help her through her legal proceedings and cover her costs. If you head over to helptamara.com, it'll take you to this website for Tamara's book. Again, purchases of that book, I'm assuming, help with her legal issues, her legal bills, her legal costs. I believe Ezra Levant is funding Tamara's appeal on the charges. We don't want any charges for these individuals. Again, I can't speak for Chris Barber because Barber has a separate lawyer. But as far as Tamara's concerned, Ezra Levant is funding an appeal. As it says down here, the Democracy Fund is pleased to announce that it will crowdfund the cost of legal defense for Tamara Leach, peaceful protester who was leader of the trucker convoy last year. Anyone who wants to help this important civil liberties campaign can visit the website helptamara.com, which again leads you to here. Their goal is 7,500 donations. They're at 86%. If you're in a position to help Tamara, not only is she a Canadian hero, dear friend of mine, any help is welcome at this point in time. I also want to announce that help will be coming from Unacceptable Fringe as well. All profits from How the Prime Minister Stole Freedom and Hold the Line, The Ballad of Tamara Leach, all profits from sales of these books will be donated to helptamara.com, to Ezra Levant, to assist with Tamara's legal fees. So if you want something for the money you're donating, if you want a product in your hands to say, well, I donated, but I also got something out of it, head over to Amazon, pick up How the Prime Minister Stole Freedom, or Hold the Line, The Ballad of Tamara Leach. You can pick those copies up on Amazon. And again, all profits, not even like a portion, all of it is going to help Tamara. I'm happy to donate that to the cause to help my friend. Go grab your copies. Links are down below in the description below the video. Links to all of our books are down below. You can also Google or search Unacceptable Fringe books. It will take you to our page on Amazon. You can also just search on Amazon for How the Prime Minister Stole Freedom or Hold the Line, The Ballad of Tamara Leach. They'll both pop up. Go grab your copies. Support Tamara Leach any way possible. I've always said that the one thing we have to take into account is while the truckers went to Ottawa and pushed for mandates to come to a close. Now, again, that wasn't their purpose to be there, but it definitely had an impact. I feel that lockdown mandates would have continued much further into our future had they have not gone to Ottawa and shown just how fed up Canadians were. Our pandemic ended. People were allowed to go to restaurants again. People were allowed to go to movie theaters. People were allowed to travel. Meanwhile, Tamara, Chris Barber, and others, their pandemic did not end. They were forced to stay in their house on gag orders. They were not allowed on social media. They were not allowed to talk to certain people. They were not allowed to travel. They're not allowed to move residents. They're essentially still on their form of a pandemic. So while they sacrificed everything for us, they've been a martyr to the justice system for freedom in Canada. Again, I would encourage anybody watching this video, if you're in a position to support, head over and do that. I usually don't tout these things. I usually don't push for these things. But in this case, Tamara is a dear, dear friend, and I would be doing her a terrible disservice as a friend if I did not stand behind her. As I said, I always will, because it is my belief that this country owes her, Chris Barber, Pat King, everyone who was at that Freedom Convoy, an unpayable, insurmountable debt. We all have the right to be free, or at least as free as we can be right now, and it is thanks to the work that they have done. This channel would not exist without the actions of the Freedom Convoy, nor would any of my properties on Amazon. If you can help, please help. Join me tonight here on the channel for Friday Night Fringe with my beautiful wife, Mrs. Fringe. We'll definitely be talking about this court case. We'll be talking about the election that's coming up as well. Join us tonight. I want to hear what you guys have to say live. We always look forward to hearing what you have to say live. This is the greatest YouTube community on the platform. Let's show the government. Again, part of the reason I want to crowdfund sales from the books, put these books at #1. Let's show the government again that we stand behind Tamara full force. Join me tonight on the platform, 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, for more discussion about this topic as well as others. I look forward to seeing you there. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.